Carl Jung, a strong aura is a sign you are an awakened soul. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Have you ever felt like your energy walks into a room before you do? That unspoken presence, that silent power, is not a coincidence. It's a sign of spiritual awakening. A strong aura isn't just about being noticed. It's about being deeply connected to your soul's truth. In today's video on spiritual wisdom, we'll explore how Jung's teachings reveal that a powerful aura is often the mark of someone who has awakened to their deeper self. If you've ever felt misunderstood, intense, or too much for others, you might actually be a mirror to their unconscious. Comment below. I embrace my awakening if this message resonates with you. And don't forget to share your thoughts as we dive in. 1. Carl Jung and the secret of a powerful aura. Carl Jung believed that when a person begins to awaken spiritually, something deep inside them stirs. The unconscious mind, usually quiet, buried, almost asleep, suddenly becomes vivid and alive. This awakening doesn't stay hidden. It moves outward, flowing through every word, gesture, and silence. Jung didn't use the word aura, but he spoke of a powerful presence, a presence so profound that others can feel it before a single word is spoken. It's not a performance or a mask. It's your truth made visible. And this is what spiritual wisdom reveals. Your energy, once awakened, becomes a living signal. This presence isn't created through effort. It's born from alignment. Jung taught that when a person becomes conscious of their unconscious, when they begin to integrate their shadow, confront their fears, and embrace their inner contradictions, they begin to radiate wholeness. And that wholeness is magnetic. It doesn't shout. It doesn't try to convince. It simply is. People feel it before they understand it. They are moved by it without knowing why. It is your aura, not in the mystical sense of glowing colors, but in the deeply human sense of energetic gravity. As this energy grows stronger, it becomes a mirror. And not everyone is ready to face what it reflects. A powerful aura doesn't just comfort, it confronts. It disrupts illusions. It calls attention to what others have suppressed within themselves. This is why those who carry spiritual presence often feel misunderstood. You might notice that some people avoid you without cause or act defensive in your presence, even when you've done nothing wrong. It's not personal. It's energetic. Your very being stirs something in them they haven't yet faced. This is one of the silent burdens of awakening. But it is also sacred, because being a mirror is not a curse, it's a calling. Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming whole by integrating all aspects of yourself. The more inner work you've done, the more your energy speaks for itself. Without effort, your aura becomes clear, firm, and unshakable. Not because you seek power, but because you've reclaimed your truth, and others can feel it. In a world addicted to appearances and shallow interactions, your presence speaks a different language, the language of depth, authenticity, and light. Yet this journey requires strength. Because with a strong aura comes spiritual responsibility. You will light up spaces that are used to darkness. You will bring emotional clarity that others may not be ready to receive. You will walk alone at times, not because you are unworthy of company, but because few are ready to travel as deep as you have. But remember, your energy is not a disturbance. It is an invitation, an unspoken signal that transformation is possible. And in every encounter, you become a spark, a reminder, a quiet revolution. This is spiritual wisdom at its core, not a doctrine, but a way of being. Not something you teach, but something you become. Your aura becomes the echo of your inner healing. And when your presence speaks louder than words, you are no longer just a person in the room. You are the shift. You are the light. Have you ever noticed people reacting to your energy before you even speak? If so, share your experience in the comments below so others can learn from it. If not, comment, "I will pay attention," and let's explore the power of presence together. 2. Signs your aura is too powerful. People stare at you, not because you're loud or seeking attention, but because there's something about you they can't explain. It's not your clothes, your words, or even your actions. It's your presence. It's your energy. Some feel strangely safe near you, like they've known you in another life. Others become uncomfortable, even defensive, without knowing why. But this isn't a social problem. It's a spiritual sign. Your aura is speaking before you do, and not everyone knows how to handle that level of truth. You've been told you're too intense, too emotional, too deep. But those labels don't mean something is wrong with you. They mean your light is leaking through. What people are really reacting to is your soul awake, alert, and alive. When you go through a spiritual awakening, it doesn't just change your thoughts, it shifts your entire energy field. Your aura expands, your vibration rises. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And when you do, you stop blending in. You start standing out, not by choice, but by truth. Being around others often leaves you drained. You don't just hear words, you feel emotions. You don't just observe behavior, you sense the pain, the joy, the conflict behind it. Crowds overwhelm you, not because you're fragile, but because you're wide open. You're absorbing everything. That's what happens when your aura becomes a living mirror. You reflect what others are hiding, even from themselves. Those who are willing to grow will find comfort in you. But those avoiding their own transformation may push you away, blame you, or misunderstand you. Their discomfort has nothing to do with your worth and everything to do with what your energy reveals. You might try to tone yourself down, shrink, make others more comfortable, but something inside you resists. That resistance is your soul refusing to dim for the convenience of others. You weren't born to be tolerated. You were born to activate. Your presence awakens. Your voice shakes things loose. That's why the people who are ready will be magnetized to you. And those who aren't? They'll call you too much because you feel like more than they're used to. That's not your burden to carry. It's their invitation to rise. A powerful aura isn't about ego. It's about alignment. It means you've walked through fire and still carry light. You've faced yourself in silence, and now your very existence calls others to do the same. That's why you're different. That's why you're noticed. That's why some people can't look away and others can't look at you at all. You didn't choose this magnetism. It's the byproduct of your healing, your honesty, your inner truth shining without apology. This is the essence of spiritual awakening. It's not just peaceful, it's powerful. It changes how people respond to you. It changes how energy moves around you. And most of all, it changes how you move through the world. No longer seeking permission to exist, but embodying the truth that your presence is purpose enough. Do you feel this deep in your soul? If you do, comment below. My aura is powerful, and I embrace it. Let others feel your light. 3. when your energy triggers others. Your energy doesn't just speak, it reveals. When your aura is strong, it acts like a mirror, silently reflecting back to others the parts of themselves they've worked hard to hide. And often, what you trigger in them has nothing to do with you. It's their own unconscious reacting to the light you carry. As Carl Jung once said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. So when someone is uncomfortable around you, it may not be your personality, your choices, or even your words. It's your presence. Your energy awakens something they've suppressed. This is the essence of projection. Jung believed that when the unconscious is not integrated, it gets projected outward. People see in others what they cannot face in themselves. So if someone lashes out at your confidence, they may be hiding deep insecurity. If they accuse you of being too much, it may be because they've silenced their own voice for too long. And when your peace unsettles someone, it could be because they're living in inner chaos. Your calm becomes a reminder of the inner work they've avoided. That's why your light doesn't always attract praise. It attracts discomfort, envy, misunderstanding. Not because there's something wrong with you, but because you reflect back what others aren't ready to face. You can see this everywhere in friendships, where people drift away as you grow. In workplaces, where your quiet confidence draws resentment. In family dynamics, where your emotional awareness makes others defensive. The more conscious you become, the more unconscious material you stir in others. Your spiritual awakening amplifies your aura, and your aura speaks without words. It says, "I see clearly now." And that kind of vision can be unsettling to those still living in emotional fog. Carl Jung taught that the path to wholeness demands we confront the shadow, those hidden aspects of ourselves that we deny or repress. But many avoid this confrontation. So when your energy exposes the shadow, it can trigger resistance, projection, or even hostility. You might be labeled arrogant for setting boundaries, cold for being detached from drama, or intimidating for simply being sure of who you are. But these labels aren't yours to carry. They belong to those who cannot yet see clearly within themselves. A modern example of this truth is Maria, a woman who began a deep inner healing journey. Through meditation and reflection, she became more centered, less reactive, more aware. But as her energy shifted, people around her grew distant. Co-workers whispered, old friends pulled away. One person even accused her of being too calm, as if her peace was offensive. But the truth was simple. Her healing exposed their unrest. Her silence made their noise unbearable. Her clarity revealed their confusion. So if you've ever been misunderstood for being calm, judged for being confident, or disliked for no clear reason, know this. It's not always about who you are. It's about what your presence reveals. Your aura is a mirror, and not everyone is ready to see what it reflects. Stay rooted in your truth. Keep shining, because your energy, though triggering to some, is medicine to those who are ready to awaken. And as Jung knew well, the awakened soul does not dim itself to fit in. It simply learns to walk with grace through a world still learning how to see. If you've ever felt like your energy brings out strong reactions in others, good or bad, know that it's not your fault. It's your light reflecting their shadows. If this message resonates with you, like the video, subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and share your experience in the comments below. Let's grow in awareness together. 4. Energetic isolation and being misunderstood. People with strong auras often live in a paradox. They are seen by everyone, yet deeply misunderstood. Not because they are strange or broken, but because their energy is too honest for a world built on pretense. Their presence carries a certain intensity, not loud or demanding, but quietly disruptive. It's the kind of energy that doesn't tolerate manipulation, won't fake a smile, and simply can't pretend to enjoy shallow interactions. In a society where masks are currency, this level of authenticity is often rejected before it's even understood. A powerful aura is not something you choose. It's something you embody. It reflects the work your soul has done, the pain you've transmuted, and the truth you now refuse to abandon. People feel it before you speak. They may not know why they feel exposed around you, but they do. That's because your energy mirrors what others try to hide. You don't need to say a word to unsettle someone who lives in denial. Your silence does the work. Your stillness reveals the noise in others. This is not arrogance. This is spiritual wisdom in action. Carl Jung understood this phenomenon deeply. He believed that as a person awakens spiritually, the unconscious mind becomes active, alive, and begins projecting itself into the external world. It becomes a presence, and that presence becomes uncomfortable to those who haven't yet met themselves. You may find that you're the one always being too intense, too quiet, too serious. But in reality, you're just being. And being, in its purest form, threatens the performance-based identity most people live inside. So you end up alone, not because you lack love, but because your love is too real for those who only know how to chase it, not receive it. You end up isolated not because you're unworthy, but because your soul refuses to settle in places where it cannot breathe. You start to realize that the loneliness you feel isn't about the absence of people. It's about the absence of resonance. You can sit in a room full of laughter and still feel disconnected if no one there speaks the language of your soul. But this isolation has a purpose. It's not punishment, it's purification. It's the universe pulling you inward to build something unshakable inside of you. Something that doesn't depend on validation, acceptance, or applause. Something eternal. Spiritual wisdom teaches us that solitude is often the gateway to clarity, and clarity is what strengthens the aura. When you know who you are, you stop entertaining what you are not. Then one day, you meet someone who doesn't flinch at your truth, someone who sees your depth and doesn't try to climb out of it. There are no games, no masks, just quiet recognition. It feels like home, not because it's familiar, but because it's finally real. And in that moment, everything you went through makes sense. All the loneliness, all the misunderstandings, all the nights you questioned if there was anyone out there like you, it was all leading to this: resonance. So if your energy feels too much, it's because the world is still waking up. If you feel alone, it's because you're meant to stand out. You're not here to blend in. You're here to be a signal, a reminder, a mirror. You're here to hold the frequency steady until others rise to meet it. That's what it means to carry a strong aura. That's what it means to live in spiritual wisdom. Are you someone who's often misunderstood because your energy refuses to conform? If this message resonates, comment below. I honor my energy to affirm your truth, and remember, you're not alone on this path. 5. Jung's journey of individuation. Carl Jung believed that the deepest purpose of our psychological and spiritual evolution is the process of individuation, the journey of becoming whole by integrating all parts of the self. It's not simply about becoming better, but about becoming real. And as you begin to face your shadow, heal the wounds of your inner child, and embrace the truth of who you are beneath all conditioning, something powerful begins to shift, not just within you, but around you. Your aura strengthens. It no longer hides behind fear or trauma. It becomes electric, charged, alive. You don't just enter a space, you alter its frequency. This transformation isn't visible to the eye, but it's deeply felt. People begin to sense you before you even speak. They feel your presence, your calm power, and sometimes they don't know how to react. That's because your energy has become a mirror. A strong aura born from spiritual awakening doesn't just shine light, it reveals darkness. It reflects back to others the parts of themselves they've avoided. And not everyone is ready to meet those parts. So they may misread you, resist you, or even fear the intensity of your presence. But none of that is about you. It's about them. When you reclaim the energy trapped in your unhealed wounds, your aura becomes a living symbol of your inner work. Every layer of self-awareness you uncover expands your energetic field. And this field carries information. It tells the world you are someone who has faced the fire and emerged with clarity. That clarity doesn't need to prove anything. It simply radiates. You begin to realize you are no longer performing for love or belonging. You've made peace with being misunderstood. You've chosen truth over approval. And that inner alignment becomes your power. A spiritually awakened aura is disruptive by nature, not because it wants to be, but because it cannot conform to illusions. It operates on a different frequency, one that resonates with authenticity, not approval. And so you may find yourself more alone, more quiet, more selective. You no longer tolerate spaces that drain you or people who don't see you. But this is not loneliness, it's refinement. You are being called into deeper energetic integrity, into sacred solitude, where your light can rest and recharge without compromise. What Jung understood, long before modern science explored energy fields and consciousness, is that the unconscious mind doesn't stay quiet forever. It longs to be integrated. And once it is, it doesn't just liberate your psyche, it transforms your energy. The process of individuation is not just psychological healing. It is a spiritual reassembly of all the pieces you once believed were too broken to belong. And when those pieces come together, they create a force field, a magnetic aura that communicates healing without words. This is the signature of true transformation. Not loud, not performative, but undeniable. It's the quiet strength of someone who knows themselves, the energetic resonance of someone who has stopped chasing and started becoming. And that, more than anything, is the essence of spiritual awakening. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you've always been beneath the noise. If this message resonates with your soul, leave a comment of truth. I choose the path of individuation. I am becoming whole, radiant, and free. 6. Awakening and the power that needs no words. You no longer chase validation. You no longer shrink yourself just to make others feel comfortable. Now, your aura speaks long before your mouth ever opens. It carries the weight of your healing, the fire you've walked through, and the light you chose to hold on to when it would have been easier to go dark. Your presence alone communicates, I've burned and risen. I've healed in silence. I see clearly now. This isn't fantasy. This is frequency. This is the reality of spiritual awakening. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious mind, once made conscious, shapes not only your inner world, but your outward reality. He didn't use the word aura, but he described the presence a psychic field that extends beyond the body and makes others feel something before they even understand what it is. When you awaken, your energy aligns with that truth. And the result? You no longer have to perform. You simply are. And that being holds more power than years of explaining ever could. You become the person whose stillness silences the noise. In a world addicted to loudness, your quiet self-trust is disruptive. You don't speak to be seen, you speak when there's truth to share. And because of that, people listen. They may not understand why, but they feel it. You've become a mirror, and mirrors don't lie. Some will love you for it. Others will avoid you entirely, because your aura confronts them with everything they've suppressed in themselves. Think of the woman who no longer rushes to prove her worth in meetings, in conversations, or relationships. She's not trying to win people over. She's not desperate to be chosen. She already chose herself. And that energy, that deep, unwavering frequency, it changes the dynamic of every room she enters. Others notice. They lean in, not because she demands attention, but because her energy draws it. That is the power of spiritual awakening, when your healed vibration becomes your strongest voice. Carl Jung taught that individuation, the integration of all parts of the self, leads to wholeness. When you embrace your shadow, reclaim your wounded inner child, and release your dependency on external approval, you awaken the soul. And once that awakening begins, your aura shifts. It becomes magnetic to truth and allergic to pretense. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop explaining yourself to those who've already made up their minds. You walk with grace, speak with purpose, and live in alignment with your essence. This is why your presence now unsettles some people. Because you've stopped abandoning yourself. You've stopped dimming your light. And that alone is revolutionary. You no longer exist to entertain, to fix, or to earn love. You are love. And your aura reminds others of what they've forgotten within themselves. This is not ego. This is the embodiment. This is spiritual wisdom. This is the energy of someone who's finally come home to themselves. As Carl Jung would affirm, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And now, that's exactly who you're being. Not by force, not by strategy, but by frequency. If you feel the power of silent transformation, subscribe now for more spiritual wisdom that awakens your true essence. 7. Be proud of the light you carry. You are not too much. You are simply real in a world that still fears truth. You carry a presence that cannot be dimmed, a force that lingers even after you leave the room. Some call it intensity. Others call it a mystery. But what it truly is the unmistakable signature of a soul that has awakened. As Carl Jung once said, your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. And you, yes, you have done the hard work of looking inward. That's why your aura speaks even when you don't. It's not just energy, it's your story, woven through your silence, your strength, your stillness. It reflects every pain you've transmuted, every emotion you've honored, and every truth you've dared to hold when the world offered you masks. You didn't just read about healing, you walked through fire and came out glowing. That glow is not decoration, it is a declaration. And while some may not have the language to understand it, they feel it. They sense something different in you, and that difference, whether they admit it or not, commands respect. A strong aura does not mean you are flawless. It means you are faithful to your growth. You've stopped seeking yourself in the eyes of others and started reclaiming your power from within. That is spiritual wisdom in motion, living, breathing, embodied. You don't manipulate light. You are light. And in that light, others see what they've buried. Your very existence becomes a mirror that forces them to confront what they've ignored. Not everyone will like that. And that's okay. Because you didn't come here to please. You came here to remember. To remember your essence beyond conditioning, beyond trauma, beyond fear. And every time you choose truth over comfort, peace over performance, alignment over approval, you reinforce that essence. You become a signal, not a noise, a vibration, not a performance. And that's why your presence often unsettles the unawakened. Because deep down, they recognize something ancient in you, something powerful, something sacred. So when you are called too much, know this. It's just another way of saying your soul refuses to shrink. When people turn away, it's often because your light reveals the shadows they're not ready to face. But do not let that dim you. You've earned every ounce of radiance in your field. And while others are busy hiding behind curated personas, you've chosen embodiment. That is the highest form of courage and the purest expression of spiritual wisdom. To affirm the light you carry, speak it into the world. Comment below, "I walk in truth," to honor your journey and inspire others to awaken the power within. And if this message resonates with your soul, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your presence makes a difference. Thank you for spending this time with us on Spiritual Wisdom. If today's message about aura and awakened souls resonated with you, know that your light is not a burden, it's a gift. Even when others don't understand your energy, never dim your truth. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming insights on spiritual growth, inner power, and the wisdom of Carl Jung. Until next time, stay radiant, stay grounded, and remember, your presence is powerful for a reason. The behavior of people who have suffered too much in life. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Carl Jung. Welcome to Spiritual Wisdom, where we uncover the hidden truths behind the way we think, feel, and connect. In today's video, we'll explore the behaviors of people who have suffered deeply in life, not to judge, but to understand. Pain has a way of shaping how we show up in the world, often turning into silence, hyper-independence, or guarded hearts. But what if these patterns are not flaws, but survival strategies? And more importantly, what if awareness can transform them? As you watch, I encourage you to reflect. Which of these patterns have you recognized in yourself or someone you love? Comment below with your thoughts or share your own story. We'd love to hear how your journey of healing has helped shape the person you are becoming. Let's grow together. 1. Pain reshapes behavior, not character. People who seem cold or distant are not heartless. They're simply protecting themselves. Their quiet demeanor is not a lack of feeling, but the result of emotional survival. Pain doesn't erase a person's true nature, but it does change how they show up in the world. Carl Jung taught that when pain is not brought into consciousness, it hides and turns into behavior. What we often mistake as indifference is actually someone trying not to be wounded again. Their actions are not a reflection of who they are deep down. but of what they had to become to stay safe. Those who've suffered deeply rarely wear their pain on their sleeves. Instead, they build walls, not because they want to keep others out, but because they've been let down too many times. It's easier to appear emotionless than to risk vulnerability again. Spiritual wisdom reveals that these defense mechanisms, withdrawal, silence, overthinking, are not personality traits, but emotional strategies born from wounds that were never given the chance to heal. They're not difficult, they're surviving. Often, the most compassionate people are the most guarded. They felt too much, seen too much, and learned that being open can come at a cost. What looks like emotional detachment is often emotional overload. What we call strong boundaries in healing language, the world may misinterpret as coldness. But that's because most people don't know what it's like to live with invisible pain. They don't realize that some behaviors are not chosen. They are inherited from trauma, rehearsed by memory, and reinforced by life experience. A person who appears unaffected might actually be deeply moved, but unable to express it safely. Spiritual wisdom teaches us to see beyond surface behavior and listen to what silence is trying to say. That withdrawn friend may be battling anxiety every time they step into a room. That partner who struggles to open up may be reliving the fear of past betrayal. And the one who never asks for help may have grown up in an environment where needing anything was punished or ignored. When Jung spoke about the persona, he referred to it as the mask we wear to function in society. But for people who have suffered, this mask becomes more than a role. It becomes a shield. Over time, they forget where the mask ends and where their true self begins. Healing, then, is not about becoming someone new, but about removing the layers of defense and rediscovering who they were before the world taught them to hide. We must stop assuming that silence equals disconnection and that emotional restraint means someone doesn't care. Often, it's the opposite. They care so deeply that their heart has learned to tread carefully. Every quiet response, every delayed reply, every moment of hesitation is a story, a history that deserves to be honored, not judged. Spiritual wisdom reminds us to meet others not with assumptions, but with curiosity and compassion. So when you encounter someone who seems distant, consider what battles they might be quietly fighting. Don't rush them. Don't push them to perform connection in a way that makes you comfortable. Instead, hold space. Because often, behind the armor is a soul longing to be understood, not for what they show, but for what they've survived. Have you ever hidden your true self just to avoid getting hurt again? If so, share your experience in the comments. Your story might help someone feel less alone. And if you're still learning how to lower your guard, comment, "I'm learning to trust again," so we can grow through this together. 2. Emotional defenses are survival mechanisms. What the world often calls toughness is, more truthfully, a carefully constructed suit of armor built from silent suffering. Behind the mask of emotional distance or control is not a cold heart, but a deeply wounded soul that once learned, maybe as a child or in a past relationship, that vulnerability was not safe. When love was unpredictable, when trust was broken, when emotions were punished or ignored, the psyche did what it had to do to survive. It built defenses. Withdrawal, aloofness, control, hyper-independence. These behaviors didn't start as choices. They were instincts, forged in moments when openness was met with pain. Carl Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And for many, it's not just the outside world they're guarding against. It's the fear of their own emotions, their own softness, their own unmet needs. These inner wounds, left unacknowledged, don't disappear. Instead, they hide. They shapeshift into personality traits and habits that the world misunderstands. Someone who avoids deep conversation may have once been silenced. Someone who controls every outcome may have grown up in chaos. These aren't flaws. They're survival codes. Emotional defenses are the language of the soul trying to stay safe. And yet, what once protected them begins to imprison them. The wall that kept the danger out also keeps connection out. They long for love, for belonging, but can't fully trust it. Every gesture of care is filtered through old memories. What if they leave? What if they lie? What if it hurts again? The body remembers what the mind forgets. The nervous system flinches before logic has a chance to speak. This is where spiritual awakening begins, not in denying these defenses, but in recognizing them as messages. Messages from the past are still echoing into the present. To awaken spiritually is to ask, is this armor still serving me, or is it keeping me from what I truly want? Spiritual wisdom doesn't judge the defense. It understands it. And in that understanding, there is space for transformation. Because healing isn't about becoming a version of yourself that was never hurt. It's about honoring the one who was, and still daring to love, still daring to trust, still daring to hope. Slowly, the defenses soften. Not because the pain never existed, but because the soul finally feels safe enough to exhale. Emotional defenses are not signs of weakness. They are signs of history. And when we stop condemning ourselves for being guarded, we begin to understand that these patterns were never about being broken. They were about surviving. But survival is not the end of the story. In the light of awareness, survival turns into growth. Protection turns into presence. And the armor, which once felt necessary, begins to fall away one brave breath at a time. If this message resonates with you, comment below. My defenses once protected me, but healing begins now. Let's grow together by shedding the armor we no longer need. 3. Jung's complexes, emotional wounds that still react. Carl Jung taught that when we experience trauma, it doesn't simply pass. It embeds itself into the psyche as what he called complexes. These are not just emotional memories. They are unconscious emotional patterns that lie beneath our awareness, reacting to the present as if it were the past. They act like emotional landmines, dormant until something in the environment echoes the original wound. And once triggered, they explode in the form of overreactions, anxiety, defensiveness, or silence. Even in safe moments, people with deep emotional wounds may suddenly feel abandoned, rejected, or attacked, not because of the present, but because of what their nervous system still remembers. Someone who has suffered deeply might seem irrational when they're actually reacting to an invisible pain. A delayed message feels like being forgotten. A simple disagreement feels like betrayal. These aren't exaggerations, they are survival responses. Jung believed these complexes behave like fragmented personalities within us. They hijack the mind, take over the body, and temporarily silence reason. You might find yourself saying something sharp, withdrawing, or breaking down, and afterward wondering, why did I do that? The truth is, it wasn't just you. It was the part of you that never got to heal. Take the example of a woman who always handles things alone. She's smart, reliable, successful. But the moment her partner forgets a promise, she doesn't just get upset, she feels completely undone. That reaction doesn't come from this moment. It comes from the little girl who waited for her father to show up and watch the sun set alone. The adult is functioning, but the child is still hurting. And the trigger? It's not the person in front of her, it's the wound inside her. These emotional patterns shape how people behave in relationships, at work, and with themselves. And because they are unconscious, people often feel confused, guilty, or ashamed for being too emotional or too intense. But Carl Jung reminds us that nothing changes until it's made conscious. Naming the pattern takes away its power. Understanding the root gives you space to respond differently. The moment you notice yourself being overwhelmed, not by what is, but by what was, you've taken the first step toward healing. These inner reactions are not signs of weakness. They're signs of emotional memory encoded into your body. They are the reasons why someone avoids closeness, overreacts to silence, or expects rejection even in love. This is not about drama. It's about the psyche trying to protect itself from what once hurt too much. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." When you begin to see your patterns clearly, you stop calling it fate and start calling it healing. The process of becoming whole begins with seeing yourself truthfully, not as broken, but as layered, not as reactive, but as remembering. And each time you pause, notice, and choose differently, you are untangling the thread of your past from the present moment. That's not a weakness. That's what Carl Jung would call individuation, the courage to become who you really are beneath the wounds. If you're ready to break free from old emotional patterns and step into conscious healing, don't hesitate to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's bring these hidden wounds into the light together. 4. Silence, isolation, and distrust are misunderstood. Pulling away isn't always a sign of arrogance or disinterest. It's a quiet way the soul tries to protect itself after being wounded. People who've suffered deeply don't always show their scars on the outside. Instead, they retreat into silence, not because they don't care, but because they've cared too much in the past and been left to bleed alone. Carl Jung once said that what we do not make conscious will direct our lives, and we will call it fate. That's exactly what happens when pain goes unspoken. It becomes behavior, patterns, and distance. Silence becomes a shelter, not because people want to isolate themselves forever, but because silence doesn't judge, doesn't interrupt, and doesn't betray. It holds space for what the world so often dismisses. But that same silence, left unchecked, can grow into something heavy. It can turn into a wall that keeps both the pain in and the love out. What once protected the soul can start to suffocate it. People who have been betrayed or emotionally abandoned often develop a deep mistrust, not just toward others, but toward their own ability to judge character. They overthink every gesture of kindness, wondering if it's genuine or if it comes with a hidden price. They may appear distant or guarded, but that's not coldness, it's memory. Spiritual wisdom teaches that this kind of withdrawal is not weakness. It is a nervous system trying to regulate itself in a world that felt unsafe for too long. Isolation is another misunderstood behavior. It can look like laziness or social disconnection from the outside. But for someone who's suffered, it's a way to recharge in a world that has drained them dry. They aren't running from people, they're running from overwhelm. And yet, as comforting as solitude can be, it can also become addictive. If no one enters your space, no one can hurt you, but no one can love you either. When distrust settles in the heart, it doesn't always come from cynicism. It often grows from hope that was crushed one too many times. Each time they opened up and were dismissed, the heart learned to close a little tighter. And so now, even when love shows up with good intentions, they hesitate. They scan for inconsistencies, wait for the mask to fall, because they've seen too much and believed too fast before. Spiritual wisdom reminds us that these behaviors of silence, distance, distrust are not personality flaws. They are responses to pain. They are evidence of survival, not failure. The psyche, in its effort to avoid future wounds, builds defenses that look like personality traits. But deep beneath those traits is a soul that still longs to be seen, to be held, to be safe. To witness someone's silence is to witness their pain. To love them through it is to understand that healing doesn't always look like speaking up, reaching out, or saying yes. Sometimes healing looks like giving space, asking nothing, and simply being there. Because the loudest cries for help don't always come in words. Sometimes they come in silence. Do you recognize this kind of silence within yourself or someone you love? If so, comment below. I protect my peace, but I choose healing. Your words might speak life to someone else walking the same path. 5. The persona, hiding behind strength. Many people who appear composed and confident are not truly at peace. They're just well rehearsed. What the world sees as strength is often a carefully maintained mask, what Carl Jung referred to as the persona. It's a survival strategy, built layer by layer in response to past pain. This mask doesn't just shield vulnerability. Over time, it becomes a cage that disconnects a person from their authentic self. The more it is worn, the more it starts to feel like an identity. But deep down, the soul knows it's not real. Behind this mask is often someone who learned, through experience, that the world does not easily hold space for raw emotion or visible weakness. So instead of crying, they smiled. Instead of reaching out, they became independent. Instead of falling apart, they carried others. The strong one becomes a role so deeply ingrained that even they forget it's a performance. But when the applause fades and the room is silent, a haunting question lingers. Who am I when no one is watching? Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." That's why many people keep the mask on. It feels safer than facing what's beneath it. But there comes a moment in every soul's journey when the persona starts to crack, not from weakness, but from the quiet power of truth. That crack marks the beginning of spiritual awakening. It's the moment when the soul starts whispering, not for perfection, but for presence. And presence requires honesty. True spiritual awakening is not a dramatic explosion. It often starts in silence. It begins in those moments when pretending becomes too exhausting, when the smiles feel hollow, and the strong exterior can no longer contain the storm inside. This awakening looks like sitting with grief you once buried. It sounds like saying, "I'm not okay," and meaning it. It feels like softening after years of being hard. You begin to touch the parts of yourself you had long abandoned just to survive. The persona is armor, but healing is surrender. And it takes immense courage to lay down the mask and say, "I want to be real now." That decision doesn't mean you stop being strong. It means you finally define strength on your own terms. You stop confusing silence with peace, You stop confusing detachment with healing. You stop confusing being needed with being loved. You begin to reclaim the parts of you that were silenced in the name of resilience. Spiritual wisdom reminds us that the path to wholeness is not found in becoming more impressive, but more honest. When you meet yourself beyond the performance, you unlock a deeper kind of power, not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that radiates quiet truth. And in that truth, you are no longer a mask. You are a mirror for others, showing them what it looks like to come home to themselves. If this message spoke to something hidden deep within you, leave a like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss content that helps you heal and grow. In the comments, write, "I am ready to live as my true self." 6. Empathy that exhausts. Wounded healers. People who have suffered deeply often carry within them a heightened sensitivity to the emotions of others. They feel things others cannot see, and their hearts are tuned like instruments to the silent music of pain. This deep empathy can be a beautiful gift, but when it is driven by past wounds, it can quietly turn into self-erasure. Carl Jung spoke of projection as one of the ways we unconsciously cope with what we haven't healed. In this case, empathy becomes a projection of one's own suppressed pain, disguised as compassion for others. These wounded healers take on the role of caretaker not because they are whole, but because they know what it means to be broken. And sometimes, helping others feels like the only way to keep their own pieces together. In the beginning, this emotional availability feels noble. They are always the ones checking in, offering support, staying late, holding space. They listen without judgment, offer without needing anything in return, and are often called the strongest in the room. But over time, the line between service and sacrifice begins to blur. They stop asking for help. They suppress their own needs. They become so used to giving that receiving starts to feel foreign, even wrong. Carl Jung reminded us that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Yet these individuals often find it easier to carry the burdens of others than to look inward and confront their own. This is not a weakness, it's survival. Many of them grew up in chaotic homes or emotionally neglectful environments where tuning into others was the only way to feel safe. Empathy became a survival tool, not just a virtue. But now, as adults, that same pattern silently drains them. They overfunction in relationships. They take on more than they should. They feel responsible for everyone's emotional state. And eventually, they begin to feel invisible, even to themselves. It's not that they don't want love, it's that they've spent so long proving their worth through caretaking that they've forgotten they're worthy simply by being. Think of someone like Mia, who seems to have it all together. She's dependable, generous, and always shows up for others. But when she's alone, she's exhausted, emotionally flat, and unsure of who she is outside of service. Her story isn't rare. It reflects a collective wound, especially among those who've experienced early trauma. They give endlessly, but inside, they feel depleted. Their empathy has become a coping mechanism rather than a conscious choice. And slowly, their identity becomes tied to how much they can endure for the sake of others. Healing, then, requires a radical act, turning that same compassion inward. True spiritual wisdom doesn't ask you to abandon others. It invites you to include yourself in the circle of care. You are not a machine built to serve. You are a soul that needs tending, rest, nourishment, and love. When your empathy is grounded in wholeness rather than brokenness, it becomes a light, not a leash. As Carl Jung taught, transformation is not about escaping the pain, but about becoming conscious of it, integrating it, and allowing it to deepen, not distort your connection with others. If this message speaks to your soul, say it out loud with faith. I am learning to care for myself while supporting others. My healing matters too. And if you feel aligned, like this video, subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss powerful messages like this one. 7. Love feels risky for the wounded. Even when someone deeply desires love, their past wounds can make it feel like stepping into danger rather than comfort. The longing is real, but so is the fear. These people often hold back not because they don't care, but because their nervous system has been trained to associate closeness with pain. When love has previously led to betrayal or loss, the heart learns to protect itself. This protection becomes a pattern. They may keep their distance, remain emotionally unavailable, or appear indifferent, even when love is all they crave. This behavior isn't a choice, it's a survival response. The subconscious mind, shaped by trauma, often confuses the present with the past. Even in a healthy relationship, their inner world may respond with panic or withdrawal, as if the old wound is being reopened. Carl Jung called this the work of complexes, deep emotional patterns rooted in early wounds that continue to govern our lives until they are brought into the light. And so, what looks like emotional distance is actually fear dressed as control. The spiritual wisdom here lies in the awareness that love cannot truly bloom until we separate current reality from the echoes of past pain. When someone begins to notice their own patterns, when they pause to ask, "Am I reacting to this person or to someone from years ago?" That's the moment healing begins. This is the core of spiritual awakening. When the unconscious becomes conscious and the old story loses its grip. Healing doesn't mean forgetting the pain. It means choosing not to live from it anymore. Still, this process is rarely smooth. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight. There will be overreactions, walls, and maybe even self-sabotage. But spiritual wisdom teaches us that true love doesn't demand perfection. It demands presence. The kind of presence that says, "I see your wounds, and I will not abandon you for having them." The kind of presence that doesn't take fear personally, but instead offers gentle reassurance. Love, when rooted in understanding, becomes the medicine the soul has always longed for. Many people who seem distant or cold are not rejecting love. They are simply unsure whether love is safe. They are trying to protect what was once shattered. And the most courageous thing they can do is to try again, to risk being known, even after being broken. Every step they take toward intimacy is a triumph of the human spirit. It's the deepest kind of strength. Love feels risky for the wounded because their past has taught them that love isn't safe. But when met with spiritual wisdom, patience, and compassion, the walls they've built don't have to become prisons. They can become bridges back to connection, back to truth, back to a love that doesn't hurt but heals. If this message speaks to the part of you that still hopes for love despite the pain, leave a comment of faith. I am open to love. I trust that healing is possible, and love will find me when I'm ready. 8. Overthinking is a defense against feeling. Overthinking is not just a habit, it's a shield. When someone has suffered too deeply, the mind steps in as a guard, building walls out of thoughts and logic to keep the heart from feeling too much. It might look like intelligence or caution, but often it's protection. The mind becomes a fortress where pain is analyzed, dissected, explained, but never truly felt. Carl Jung taught us that insight alone does not heal. True transformation begins only when we feel our pain, not just understand it. Many people who overthink are not trying to be difficult or dramatic. They are trying to survive. They learned early in life that emotions were too overwhelming, too unsafe, or simply unwelcome. So they climbed into the safety of their minds. Every scenario is mentally rehearsed. Every decision is triple-checked. Every word spoken is replayed again and again, not because they're unsure, but because they've been hurt. And the mind became their safest place. But here's the paradox. Overthinking keeps you busy on the surface while keeping you far from the truth. You can't think your way through grief. You can't solve heartbreak like a puzzle. You can't plan your way out of emotional wounds. Healing begins the moment you allow yourself to feel what you've been avoiding. That is the moment when the mind must loosen its grip and allow the heart to breathe. Spiritual awakening is not just about consciousness, it's about courage. The courage to sit with what hurts without rushing to fix it. So many overthinkers are deeply intuitive, emotionally intelligent people who carry hidden scars. Their nervous systems remain on high alert, their bodies bracing for the next emotional storm. But in healing, what's needed is not more mental effort, it's softness, stillness, presence, the ability to stay with what arises, without judgment or escape. When you overanalyze, you delay the arrival of peace. But when you breathe into your discomfort, a new kind of wisdom emerges not from the mind, but from the soul. Jung believed that what we resist persists, and nowhere is this more true than in the realm of emotion. Unfelt pain doesn't disappear. It simply becomes behavior avoidance, anxiety, withdrawal, perfectionism. But the beauty of spiritual awakening is that it offers another path. You begin to see your patterns with compassion. You stop blaming yourself for coping the only way you knew how. And slowly, the walls begin to fall, not all at once, but piece by piece, with every brave decision to feel instead of flee. Overthinking may have been necessary once, but now it may be what's holding you back. Your healing doesn't live in another thought. It lives in a feeling you haven't fully allowed yet. Let yourself feel not to suffer, but to release. That is the gateway to peace. That is where the mind surrenders and the soul begins to speak. And when it does, you'll find that what you were protecting all along wasn't pain. It was your own light, waiting to be seen. If you're still with us, drop a comment below. I'm learning to feel, not just think. Your words help us grow and reach more hearts on this journey of healing. 9. Healing means seeing behavior through compassion. People aren't difficult, they're surviving. That's what Carl Jung wanted us to understand. Behind every defensive reaction, every withdrawn silence, and every cold behavior is a nervous system trying to stay safe. Life teaches people how to protect themselves, often in ways that look like distance or indifference. But these aren't character flaws. They are survival strategies rooted in pain. Jung believed that suffering, when made conscious, becomes the very soil in which transformation takes root. But when that suffering stays hidden in the unconscious, it becomes behavior misunderstood by others and even by ourselves. Compassion, then, is not weakness. It's a lens. It lets you see through the hardened mask someone wears and glimpse the original wound beneath it. That wound might be childhood neglect, betrayal, abandonment, or shame. But whatever it is, it shaped how they respond to the world. You begin to understand that when someone overreacts, withdraws, or lashes out, they're not trying to hurt you. They're trying not to be hurt again. And this changes everything. You no longer feel attacked. Instead, you feel invited to respond with insight. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That means the people around you, your partner, your parent, your friend, may be acting from pain they don't even know exists. It's not that they want to be cold or reactive. It's that their nervous system remembers things they've never put into words. Trauma doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers in avoidance, sarcasm, perfectionism, or control. And if you don't understand this, you'll take it personally. But when you do understand it, you soften. You stop asking, "Why are they like this?" and start asking, "What hurt them into becoming this way?" That shift from judgment to curiosity is a spiritual awakening. It doesn't mean you tolerate harm or abandon your boundaries. It means you see clearly. You protect your peace, but you also see the humanity in others. You learn that everyone is carrying an invisible load, and for some, it's heavier than it looks. The truth is, emotional survival builds armor. But that armor wasn't chosen. It was inherited from moments of helplessness. And it doesn't fall away with logic. It falls away when someone finally feels safe enough to put it down. Maybe your compassion is that safe place. Or maybe your understanding is the light that helps someone recognize they're not alone. Either way, the more you bring awareness to behavior, the more healing becomes possible for both of you. Jung believed that suffering becomes sacred when it teaches you to see. So the next time someone pushes you away, remember, it might not be rejection. It might be fear. And the moment you respond with compassion instead of criticism, you've already begun the work of transformation. That is spiritual wisdom in action. That is what it means to love beyond the mask. To affirm your commitment to healing with compassion, comment below, "I choose to see with understanding." Your words may be the light someone else needs to begin their own journey of transformation. So the next time you meet someone who seems distant, guarded, or hard to reach, remember, it might not be who they are, but what they've been through. As Carl Jung taught us, the unconscious pain we carry often becomes the silent author of our behavior. Healing begins when we choose to see with compassion rather than judgment. If this message touched you, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a video that could bring more clarity, healing, and light to your journey. Until next time, stay kind and stay awakened.